World leaders gathered to discuss defence amid tensions between Israel and Iran.
The Prime Minister amongst those in The Hague at the moment. There's a gathering there having called the Middle Eastern nations to maintain the pause in hostility. Let's go to Catherine Foster, see what she has to say.
The government is announcing that they are purchasing 12 fighter jets, nuclear fighter jets. They're F-35As. They are capable of taking both nuclear weapons and conventional weapons. That's a big change. We haven't had planes able to carry nuclear weapons since the Cold War. We've only had nuclear weapons with these nuclear submarines. So the Prime Minister has said that we can no longer take peace for granted.
And as the nation's security review warns the UK must prepare for a wartime scenario, the PM is also facing a confidence vote from Labour rebels.
Well, joining us in the studio, let's talk about this with Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers. Fraser, good morning to you.
Good morning.
So we're going to be invaded. We should always be prepared for that.
Well, you'd think so. I think that's normally the job of having a military and an armed forces. We've got another review saying, warning about potentially Britain being invaded. There's been more talk about increasing defence spending. Keir Starmer has now pledged to increase defence spending to up to 5%. Lots of NATO members have agreed to do the same. This is by 2035, it should be said, so I would be very surprised if Keir Starmer is still the Prime Minister by the time this comes around. And it's also worth saying that there's a bit of a fudge with the figures there. So it's going to be about 3.5% on actual military spending and then 1.5% on sort of defence-related things, which could include things like cybersecurity. Keir Starmer wants to use the money on securing Britain's south coast against the gangs. Now, clearly that is a matter for internal British security. I'm not sure whether that necessarily defends against threats like Russia, who clearly NATO have in mind. And this is obviously a conference that started off, or, you know, even before it began, the drama was there. We had Donald Trump saying he doesn't know what the F Iran and Israel were doing, as there was a momentary breach of the ceasefire. It wasn't even clear necessarily whether Donald Trump was going to turn up. So, again, another sort of dramatic couple of days, really.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of this move now that British fighter jets are going to carry nuclear warheads for the first time since the 1990s?
Yeah, well, the UK is one of the few nuclear powers that doesn't have two types of... I mean, there's strategic nuclear weapons, which we do have, which are carried by the Trident system, and those are used, essentially, they can blow up entire cities. Well, I hope they're never used, of course. And then there are strategic types, which have never been used ever, but these would be used on the battlefield. People may remember during the early period of the war in Ukraine, when it was looking like it wasn't going Russia's way, there was talk of Vladimir Putin possibly using these weapons. China and Russia have these capabilities. Other European countries have these capabilities, and so Keir Starmer wants the UK to join that club and to be part. And it would be part of a joint NATO command.
OK, Fraser Myers, thank you very much indeed. Well, a leaked US intelligence assessment says that Iran's nuclear programme has only been set back by a few months.
Well, this is very interesting if this is true. It refutes President Trump's claims that the strikes in Iran obliterated the nuclear facilities, and it comes a day after an initially shaky ceasefire between Iran and Israel began. And Greg Swenson, who's chairman of Republican Overseas. So Trump wasn't happy about this. Hand me the Daily Star there, will you? Thank you. And there's the headline, and this is what everybody gets so annoyed about. So Donald Trump says, there it is, I'll let you read the headlines, I'll not bother with it. But you know what? That just doesn't annoy me. It doesn't annoy me in the slightest. That's reality.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, maybe a generation ago, the F-bomb would have been offensive to many, and maybe it still is offensive to many. I wouldn't do it, but
yeah,
the president
you wouldn't do
speaks
it, but
in a different way, and it's more candid, it's more direct. He's the most transparent president probably in history.
And he's also angry. He's obviously angry at this situation. And I sort of agree with him. When I heard this story yesterday, I thought, well, right, they fired a missile. We don't know where it's come from. It's ballistic. We don't know where it was going to. It was taken out, whatever. It may have been an accident, which is what Trump is saying we should have at least. But then Israel did launch a counterattack as a result.
A lot of missiles flying back and forth. I guess we'd rather have F-bombs than real bombs.
Yeah.
I think that's, what the president was trying to message here. And I get the frustration. And look, Saturday night or Sunday morning was massive. It was a great victory for peace. It's shortened the war. It's reduced risk completely. And so, great moments, but it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfectly linear in terms of...
Greg, does this mean another strike or more strikes, or will they let this go and give Iran time to regroup, rebuild?
No, look, they have been set back. I mean, there's arguments over how much damage was done. I think that's a lot of political views that are being expressed as empirical science, and I kind of really doubt a lot of the doubters in this case. So, and it's pretty obvious that it's coming down on partisan and political lines. I don't think anybody could argue that there was a devastating blow to Iran's nuclear capabilities, and let the partisan scientists, so-called scientists, argue about how much how much the setback is.
But even if there is a devastating blow, you can't bomb knowledge, and there have been reports this week that a lot of that nuclear material was moved in the days before those strikes.
Sure.
So the challenge remains, how do you keep nuclear weapons out of Iran's hands?
Yeah, don't trust and verify. And so I think there doesn't mean there won't be further strikes if the regime does not cooperate. If they do cooperate, great. If they don't, there'll be more attacks or more bombs coming in. And look, that's not... I don't think anybody wants that, but I don't think there's a doubt that there's been a major setback to their nuclear capabilities, and it's all about the timing. The concern was that they were so close to developing a nuclear weapon that it doesn't, whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months, that's just too close.
Yeah, Fraser Myers says.
ये कह रहा भाई कैंप करोगे या फाइट करनी है मैंने कहा कमीने आखिर दिन अभी भी तूने कैंप करना है
बिलाल क्या हाल है बिलाल बस सर्वाइवल देखा था ना मैंने तब पूछा पे वहीं पे थी प्लान की पहाड़ी पे
हाँ अभी भी उसी पहाड़ी पे हैं लेकिन 3 बंदे हैं 3 बंदे मैंने देखे स्क्वाड भी हो सकता 3 तो मैंने देखे हैं ख्याल करना वो भी रोटेट करेंगे अभी हैं तो जिबलर वाली पहाड़ी पे अभी भी वहीं से मार रहे हैं बस कर रहे हैं
आ रहे हैं
तब कर मैं पीछे से तू वहीं पे रहो मैं पत्थर पे जा रहा हूँ बड़े बेड़ी बनी है कुछ भी नहीं है एमओ के अलावा कुछ भी नहीं है फिलहाल इसमें हाई वाला एमओ है बस
Marked a location.
कौन से एमुलेटिंग वाले के दूसरे हाई वाले मैं उठाता हूँ तो